Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been reading Reddit lately, especially entitled Parents. I made a new account when I found this page. Reddit has just been my morning coffee read until now. I'm an only son. My mom died from ovarian cancer at 55. It broke my dad's heart. They had been together since college and were the same age, with my dad being a month older. I was 22 and finishing college with a chemistry degree when everything happened. I went to college on a full scholarship. This matters later. My dad met my stepmom when she was my mom's nurse at the hospital during her final days. Let's call her Grace. She gained my dad's trust by being caring and sympathetic after my mom passed. I was 17 then, old enough to see she just wanted my dad's money. It was my dad's choice who to date. I was in my last year of high school and had won a scholarship to attend college abroad. My dad mourned my mom for a year. During that time, Grace would call him monthly. She was waiting for her chance. After a year, Grace went after my dad. She was 40 when they started dating. I didn't like her, but my dad seemed less depressed, so I tried to give her a chance. I never trusted her. In my Scandinavian family, sons don't tell their fathers what to do. Grace is check. My father had a successful banking career and built wealth. After 6 months of dating, Grace and my father got married. My dad never got over my mom, and his health declined even at just 57. When his health got worse, he asked me what I needed to set myself up in life. I told him I didn't need anything and could take care of myself. I asked why he was talking like this when he had years ahead. I reminded him about his sisters and their children, and about my scholarship. He died a year later at 59. I've seen enough movies to wonder if his nurse wife poisoned him for his money, but I don't think that happened. Other relatives didn't like Grace either, but they knew my dad loved my mom, and her death destroyed him. When the will was read, my dad left his 5-bedroom house to me. He gave small amounts to his sisters and their children. He left about 80% of his money to Grace, several $100,000. He still gave me tens of thousands of dollars, which helped. Grace tried to act friendly, but she was furious about not getting the house too. The house was mine with legal papers to prove it. She was angry because we live in an upscale area where houses sell for huge profits. In the months after my dad died, I felt Grace was trying to see if I might want a relationship with her. Disgusting. She kept living in the house because over 3 years she acted like she owned it. I was at college and only visited every few months to see my cousins who lived nearby. I didn't emphasize that it was my house, and Grace probably forgot she had no legal right to it. She probably thought I'd give up the house to her since I never asked for my dad's money. I knew I'd deal with her eventually, especially when she started dating a new guy 5 months after my dad's burial. When I came home after graduating, she and her boyfriend Ivan were acting like I was a guest in my own house. I played along. One day Grace told me she gave away my PlayStation 4 to Ivan's cousin because I was too old for video games. I didn't know these people, and she gave away my stuff. I changed all my network passwords that day. She told me she and Ivan were getting married because she could mourn my father forever and needed to move on. I told her I graduated college, had a job with a local firm, and would find a new place soon. She looked happy about me moving out. She told me I would always have a place in their house and could stay whenever I wanted. I thanked her, though I thought it was ridiculous she offered me a place in my own house. I said I would have a new place in about 3 months. She said that was great timing because she and Ivan were going to her homeland for their wedding and honeymoon. She said it was a small ceremony. Otherwise, she would have invited me, and that she knew I was busy. I congratulated her. She asked if I could watch the house while they were gone. I found it funny she asked me to watch my own house, but I agreed to take care of it. I didn't call it her house. When they left for their trip, I put ads on rental websites for my house. I hired movers to box up Grace's things and put them in storage. I kept my parents' furniture from before Grace. I changed all locks. Within days, many people wanted to rent my house with its great views. I rented it to a young family, a lawyer, his teacher wife, and their 2 preteen children. They paid first and last month's rent and signed a 1-year lease. I warned them about my stepmom who thought the house was hers and gave them my lawyer's contact info for reassurance. I gave my lawyer the storage facility information and had paid 4 months of storage, a month longer than Grace's honeymoon. I found an apartment in the city near my work. I met a woman at a restaurant I went to after work. We've been dating 6 months and are engaged. Grace tried to cause trouble when she found out she was kicked out of my house, but my lawyer handled it without me talking to her again. I heard she and her husband left the country. They're probably spending my dad's money fast and will soon be broke. Maybe Grace will find another lonely man to exploit. The house rental income helps pay for my cousin's college and my larger apartment with my fiancé. I love my job but could live just on the rental income. If Grace had been nicer and respectful, I might have let her stay at the house. If she had stayed out of my room, but she acted like she owned the place, so I made her homeless as a wedding gift. I bought another PlayStation 4 even though I didn't use the old one much. It wasn't Grace's to give away. You don't give away other people's things, you give away your own things. That's why I kicked Grace out of my house. It's mine, and I decide who stays there. I stood in my backyard watching my husband grill burgers. Relief swept over me. After months of worry, he was finally home from his deployment overseas. Friends and family came to celebrate with us. My husband had a tough deployment. As a high-ranking military officer, he was stationed in dangerous parts of the world, often unable to communicate with me for days or weeks. I spent many sleepless nights wondering if he was safe and if he would come home. The months before his deployment were hard on our marriage. We had been married for 3 years, and this was his second deployment. This time he went to an active conflict zone, which made everything more serious. Every night I checked the news for information about his region. Every phone notification made my heart race. I joined military spouse support groups that helped me through those months. Now in our backyard, those worries were behind us. The sun was shining, the sky was clear, and the smell of grilled meat filled the air. Everyone was laughing and chatting. My husband stood at the grill, flipping burgers with a smile. He looked relaxed for the first time in months. He told his non-classified stories to our friends. I brought out potato salad and noticed him looking at me. He winked and I felt a flutter in my heart. I asked if he needed help calling him soldier. He said he had everything under control just like he controlled the base during deployment. Our friend wanted to hear more about that. My husband started explaining his security role at the forward operating base. Then it happened. We were hit with cold water. At first we thought it was a friend being playful. But when we turned, we saw our neighbor holding a water hose with a smug look. I asked what she was doing. She said sorry, not sorry, and claimed she was trying to cool us off. She was a middle-aged woman with a blonde bob haircut and sunglasses, holding her garden hose. She moved next door about 6 months ago, right after my husband deployed. She had been trouble from day one. My husband told her it wasn't funny and she couldn't splash us during our party. She said we were too loud and she was done with us. Her voice was shrill, and I felt my blood boil. This was supposed to be a special day to celebrate my husband's return. I told her we weren't even being loud, pointing out it was 3 p.m. on a Saturday. She said she was trying to nap and could hear us laughing and talking. She had always complained about everything. Our dogs barking, the color of our house. When we painted our house soft gray before my husband left, she left a note saying it was offensively bright and bringing down property values. This was too much. She knew what this day meant. I sent notes to all neighbors explaining the welcome home party and apologizing for any noise. Everyone else was understanding. Some even dropped off welcome home cards. I told her to get out and leave us alone. She rolled her eyes and turned to walk away. Then she ran toward us with her hose. Her eyes looked wild. My husband asked what she was doing. He stepped in front of me, but she had already soaked us. Guests screamed and tried to avoid the water. My mother-in-law slipped on wet grass and fell. My friend's toddler started crying. The neighbors sprayed our food, ruining everything. The burgers were soaked, salads drenched, and the cake destroyed. I yelled at her to stop and asked if she was crazy. She said maybe next time we would think twice before disturbing her afternoon. My husband stepped forward looking angry. I worried what he might do after months in a war zone, but he showed restraint. He told her to leave or he would call police. She dared us to call them, threatening to tell them we had been harassing her with noise, dogs, and our ugly house. Then she made her biggest mistake. She called the police herself, claiming we were harassing her and making too much noise. We waited for police to arrive, trying to calm down. Our party was ruined. The food was destroyed, our clothes wet, and the mood spoiled. My mother-in-law had a bruised hip. My friend's child was crying. I wanted to cry too. This was supposed to be a happy day. When police arrived, the neighbor was still ranting. She ran up to them when they got out of their car. She told officers she was relieved they came, accusing us of harassing her with noise. She claimed when she asked us to be quiet, we threatened her. The officers looked doubtful when they saw our wet clothes and destroyed party. One officer, a young woman, asked for our side. I explained we were having a welcome home party for my husband after his military deployment. I mentioned sending notes to neighbors apologizing for noise. I said we weren't loud and it was afternoon on a weekend. I showed the officer my note copy. My husband added that the neighbor came into our yard uninvited, sprayed us with her hose, caused his mother to fall, and ruined our food. The officer asked the neighbor if this was true, if she entered our property and sprayed us with water. The neighbor said yes, but we deserved it because we made her life miserable. The officer told her she didn't have the right to trespass and assault us. The neighbor questioned how water could be assault. The officer explained intentionally spraying someone with water against their will could be assault, and entering property without permission was trespassing. The neighbor's face went pale. She tried to backtrack, saying she didn't mean harm and was just upset about noise. The second officer had been talking to our guests. He spoke quietly to his partner. They nodded to each other, and the female officer turned to the neighbor. The officer told the neighbor they were arresting her for assault and trespassing based on gathered statements. The neighbor asked if they were serious, saying she was the victim. The officer read her rights, starting with the right to remain silent. The neighbor started screaming and trying to pull away. The officers restrained her and added resisting arrest to her charges. We watched as they put her in the police car. It wasn't how we expected our day to end. After police left, we checked the damage. The food was ruined, clothes wet, and mood dampened. Then something unexpected happened. Neighbors who heard the commotion started coming over. One brought lasagna, another brought beer, and soon our ruined party rebuilt itself. My husband's army buddies started the grill again. Someone played music, and the celebration resumed. As the sun set, I stood in the backyard watching my husband. He left with friends, beer in hand, looking happier than I'd seen in months. Despite everything, we salvaged the day. The neighbor spent the night in jail and got bail the next day. She was charged with assault, trespassing, and resisting arrest. She paid a fine and was ordered to do community service and anger management classes. We installed security cameras the following week. We never had problems with her again. About 3 months later, her house had a for sale sign. We weren't sad to see her go. My husband had a difficult deployment, and we didn't need an entitled neighbor ruining our celebration. In the end, we learned how supportive our community could be when it mattered. For context, I'm 27 years old and considered a high-functioning autistic individual, officially disabled by government standards. My story is about breaking free from years of control and manipulation. My diagnosis came early, but understanding what it meant took much longer. My parents, especially my mother, always emphasized how I needed extra support. While partly true, I began to realize these needs were being exaggerated and used against me. When I was younger, I accepted things without question. My mother managed my supplemental security income checks, saying it was necessary to keep our household running. She would give me about $100 per month as my share, but even that would often disappear during family crises. I didn't spend much anyway, so I rarely complained. The arrangement continued even after I turned 18. She suggested signing me up as a dependent, but something inside me resisted, and I declined. Still, I allowed her to continue managing my benefits, believing it was for the good of the family. She became my personal support worker too, which meant additional income for her through the state for taking care of me. She kept telling me I was very far from ever being able to live independently. She would point out my mistakes, my struggles with certain tasks, and use them as evidence that I couldn't survive on my own. I believed her because she was my mother. 4 years ago, something changed in me. It was like my brain finally hit its teenage rebellion phase. Suddenly, I craved independence with an intensity I'd never felt before. I started looking for ways to move out, but every time I brought it up, there was always some reason why I couldn't leave. My mother would explain how my two incomes were essential to the family's survival. If I left, the family would fall apart. She often used our pets as leverage, reminding me that many weren't even listed on our lease and were hidden during inspections. She would ask if I wanted to see my family homeless or have all our animals put down. I couldn't bear the thought, so I stayed. But caging someone who wants freedom leads to resentment. 3 years ago, I got a therapist through my state insurance program. At first, I just needed someone to talk to about my frustrations. Over time, I shared more about my home situation, the hoops my mother made me jump through, the excessive chores piled on me due to her knee problems, and the screaming matches that would happen when I couldn't meet her high expectations. After one session about a week ago, my therapist told me that what I was describing sounded like an abuse case. I initially dismissed it, telling her I'd keep it in mind. But moments later, my mother started berating me for following through on a research task she had assigned me earlier that day. She said I was hounding her when she was in an ill mental state, despite giving me the assignment just 5 minutes before. I went to my room and texted my therapist to start filling out the paperwork she had mentioned. The next day, my mother and I got into another argument, this time about dishes, which were my assigned daily chore. My motivation to do anything for her was gone by this point. Why bother when my efforts could be dismissed on a whim? The details of the argument are fuzzy now, but I remember talking back to her like any frustrated young adult might. What happened next is clear though. She walked into my room, grabbed my belongings, and started throwing them onto the front lawn, screaming at me to get out. She broke one of my computer monitors. My father finally stepped in, telling her that she couldn't just throw me out like that. He said that since I was over 18 and on the lease, legally she had to give me 30 days notice. My mother stopped, turned to me, and said she would make those next 30 days hell for me. She walked off to her room, and my father helped me bring my belongings back inside. As I sat down in my chair looking at my broken monitor, I realized she had played herself. For years, she had said that if I ever left, our family would lose everything. According to her, it was all supported by my supplemental security income and the money she received as my personal support worker. But now her behavior had given me and the government valid reason to separate. I felt courage build in my chest. She couldn't manipulate me anymore. She had fallen into her own trap, blind to the connections I had been building outside our family for years. With renewed energy, I reached out to friends, found family members, my partners, and even my grandparents. I found my disabilities care workers' contact information and explained the situation, while my mother pounded on the wall between my bedroom and her bathroom, screaming about not hearing me pack fast enough. I was planning my escape. My grandparents had seen this coming for years. They opened their home to me and my bearded dragon Pancake, allowing me to move my belongings while my mother was away receiving psychiatric care. With my caseworker's help, I regained control of my Social Security disability insurance benefits and received guidance on next steps. They're now researching housing options for after my stay with my grandparents. My boyfriend and I are making plans to live together in Washington State with support from my found family. Today marks a turning point. I've been officially disowned by my parents. My mother disowned me and my grandparents and forced my father to do the same. When I tried to contact them about removing me from the family phone plan, they told me I was disowned and further contact would lead to a restraining order. Due to my mother's behavior, I got a special state order to have their firearms removed. My grandparents now keep their doors locked. I'm waiting for my case manager to help me get my important documents from my parents' house. All I can do now is wait and watch as my parents isolate themselves. My mother pushing away all their connections, even my brother, who's now wanting to leave too. Learn to value yourself and judge the words of those closest to you. You never know when you might just be a source of income to someone who should care about you. When printing the paperwork for the firearm removal order, I realized I still had access to the printer at my parents' house. I didn't print any message to them. Instead, I disconnected my computer from their printer. Despite my mother blaming me for everything falling apart, she was the one who kicked me out. The next day, I turned in all the paperwork and received a court date 2 hours later. With zero court experience, I was nervous. The stakes felt high. If things went well, my grandparents and I could sleep safer knowing any retaliation would have to come without firearms. The courtroom was intimidating with its formal atmosphere and legal terminology. I sat holding my folder of evidence, screenshots of messages, testimonials from my therapist and caseworker, and photos of the damage to my belongings. The judge called my case number and said it was a petition for an emergency protective order and firearm removal. I stood up, feeling like an imposter. The judge must have noticed my anxiety because he told me to take a deep breath and explain why I was there. I explained everything: the years of financial control, the isolation, the escalating behavior, and finally, the violent outburst and threats. The judge listened, sometimes asking questions. A court official asked if my mother had made threats about the firearms. I told him that while she hadn't directly threatened to use them on me or my grandparents, she had said that if anyone tried to take what was hers, they'd regret it. With her mental state and how she blamed us for her problems, we were worried. After reviewing my evidence and hearing from my caseworker, the judge granted the order. He said the court found evidence that my mother posed a threat. He granted a temporary order for 14 days, during which police would remove any firearms from the house. He scheduled a hearing for a permanent order. I felt relief when I left the courthouse. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it was a start. My caseworker patted my shoulder and asked how I was feeling. I told her I felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. That night at my grandparents' house, I received a text from my brother. He told me that the police had taken the guns and our mother was upset, while our father just sat there. He said he needed to get out too and asked for help. I called him and we talked for hours. He'd been watching everything, staying quiet as usual, but my escape had shown him another path. He was 25 with a decent job, but like me had been told he couldn't make it on his own. Now he was planning to move in with a friend until he could afford his own place. My grandmother made us hot chocolate as I helped my brother plan over the phone. The kitchen was warm and smelled like cinnamon, different from the tension at my parents' house. My grandmother told me she was proud of me. My grandfather said they always knew I was capable of more than my mother let me believe. That night I slept well for the first time in years. The road ahead was uncertain. I had to figure out housing, employment that worked with my autism, and how to manage my benefits. But for the first time, these challenges felt exciting rather than overwhelming. The next morning, I received an email from my disabilities caseworker about a transitional housing program for disabled adults learning independent living skills. There was a waiting list, but my situation qualified as priority. 1 week later, my brother moved out, taking only his clothes and personal items. He sent me a selfie from his friend's apartment, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. He said freedom tasted good, and I had to agree. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to stay with. Sometimes you need to build your own support system with people who see your worth. 2 weeks after moving to my grandparents, I got notification that my name had been added to my state ID and benefits cards, giving me control over my finances for the first time as an adult. I looked at the cards, running my fingers over my name on the plastic. Looking back, I see how my mother convinced me of my own incompetence. Every small mistake I made due to my autism was used as evidence that I couldn't function independently. Every success was minimized or credited to her guidance. But here I am, managing my money, making my medical appointments, learning to cook with my grandmother, planning a move with my boyfriend, and helping my brother navigate his new independence. My therapist says healing from this takes time and some days are harder than others. Sometimes I still hear my mother's voice telling me I'll fail, but those voices grow fainter every day, replaced by new confidence and the supportive words of people who want to see me succeed. If you're reading this and recognizing similar patterns in your life, know that you deserve better. Financial control isn't love. Isolation isn't protection. Fear isn't respect. And independence isn't something anyone else decides you're ready for. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.